Thank you, everyone. And can you hear me in the back and everything? Great. First, I want to say you've already done more than I did. I came to many conferences when I was in law school, and I never made the 8 a.m. panels. So you've already shown more dedication there. And yeah, as Pam said, I'm Jenni James, and I am 1 year into a 2-year litigation fellowship with the Animal Legal Defense Fund in the Civil Litigation Department. And I'm a graduate of the University of Chicago Law School, where I had the honor of having Pam Hart teach my animal law course. And we are a very small school in an even smaller SALDF, so it actually gave me a lot of opportunities to shine, really. There were only a couple of us doing everything, and so I got to come to conferences like this. I got to introduce myself to speakers, learn which speakers were excellent, bring them back to our school, have all of 6 people show up because I dragged them there. And, and that's one of the ways to get involved, is keep your SALDF alive to the extent that you can, and do know that we know that SALDFs ebb and flow, and they flow with the interest. And and even now, my administration, I don't think the course is actually being offered again this year because not enough people signed up. So take your experiences as they come. Make it your year for your SALDF, and don't judge yourself by the fantastic John F. Kennedy Law School turnout. I was like, what? That's like more people than were in my entire, I don't know, ever. But I will talk a little bit about my story, but I do want to really frame it as everybody needs to find their own story. And I know that I'm blessed and extremely fortunate that my path led me to this table and these wonderful people, but everybody has a different path. And I think the most important thing I've learned following public interest is you don't know where it's going to go. And so you need to sit with that uncertainty, which a coworker of mine laughed, and she's like, yeah, how well are you doing with that? I'm like, I still a year. And that's the other thing. I laughed when they put me on this panel because I'm like, does this mean I have a career in animal law? And so I keep telling Carter, my boss, I'm like, yep, I have a career. I'm staying. So really my career began before I came to law school, and I didn't realize that I was coming to be an animal lawyer, but I wanted to come to find answers. I was a volunteer with the Marine Mammal Center, and I think volunteering is, first of all, one of the best things you can do in your life anyway. It brings so much more meaning and what have you, and it helped me find where I was supposed to be. And so I was volunteering with stranded marine mammals, and I was seeing them come in with obvious human injuries, some of them gunshots, entanglements, and then something called a seal bomb, when I couldn't believe that first there was a name for it, that that's what it was, and that it was somehow allowed under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And they're just these firecrackers that they throw into the water to deter sea lions from coming close to their catch. And sure enough, when it was salmon season, we would have these poor disfigured sea lions who caught them like balls in their mouth. So that was really when I was like, okay, this is great, and every day I enjoy going out to the beaches and I see these animals and I do what I can for them. But when euthanasia is the only solution and you're like hoping you can kill that animal faster, that's when you're like, well, how did this happen, and what more can I do? So I went back to law school, and I went back pretty late in life, and it actually made it more fun. I knew why I was in school, but I also still thought I would just practice and not have the luxury of getting to do this full time. So with my interest in marine mammals, I took the animal law course, and instead of, for an extra unit, I wrote a paper, a very extra long paper, sorry Pam, but I researched marine mammal issues, and from that really came, I think, the start of my career. And instead of focusing on seals and sea lions, I focused on captive orca issues. And as you guys probably know, this is the year of blackfish. I lucked out. People are actually interested in the things that I'm interested in. And so in the course of doing my research, I found the story of Lolita. She's the only orca who is not owned by SeaWorld here in the United States of America. She has been in captivity longer than I have been alive, and is the last remaining captive member of the southern resident orcas, who were the first orcas to be taken into captivity because they were easy to capture, and the ones up in the Washington waters. And I also found out that her family was listed under the Endangered Species Act, and then from there I found out she wasn't. And so that's a cause of action. And I brought that to ALDF when I had the good fortune of spending a summer clerking for them, and it became a lawsuit. And we just barely made it in the statute of limitations to get that lawsuit filed. And I also had identified a number of violations of the Animal Welfare Act that I certainly wasn't unique. Other people knew, but you all must be familiar with how terrible the USDA is. And so we have that lawsuit filed too. And suddenly I was an animal lawyer. I had identified a need, and I had found a group to help me bring that cause of action. And 2 years later, it's still pending. So I learned another lesson about animal law. Things move very, very slowly. And now here I am, and I spent last week going to blackfish screenings at different SALDFs. So again, I feel very fancy, and like maybe I have a career in animal law. But the real lessons I've learned along the way are that you don't know what you can do for animals. And so do your research, and when you're doing your research, think like a lawyer. Like, that's great to identify a problem, but identify the way to take that problem into court. That's something that we're always talking about when our litigation team meets is, okay, that's great, there's a problem, but where's the cause of action? And then from the cause of action, who's the plaintiff? Because it's always about standing. And if you develop that, if you take opportunities in school when you have research projects or join a writing competition, definitely if you can attend our national animal law competitions and do the moot court, because what I feel like I'm at in my career is not the beginning of being a lawyer, but I feel like this is still school. And so do whatever you can after graduation to be gaining these skills, and before graduation. Do what you can to improve your writing, your public speaking, so that when there's an opportunity, you're the one they want to snatch up because you are ready to function as a lawyer. And to that extent, if you can find a group and make a connection, and you will then stand out, you've demonstrated your passion, you have an idea, they're more likely to keep you. And if they keep you and don't pay you, or don't pay you enough, or you come with, school money or external money, that's okay. I think that the important part is fill the chair, have a seat at the table, and the work itself will follow. And a friend of mine calls it job stalking, and it's it worked for her. She was working as a part-time clerk after graduation as a full-fledged attorney, and she's the one who got the fellowship that opened a year later. So it can't be about your ego. It really has to be, where do you belong? And then be open to it. There's this horrible story that my favorite professor told me, which was that when he finished law school, he went and clerked on, Supreme Court, no big deal. And during law school, he had clerked for the ACLU. So he figured, well, when my Supreme Court clerkship ends, I'll go back to ACLU. They didn't take him back. And you would think, why not? And I'm like, how is this story supposed to make me feel better? But the point of his story is there was uncertainty, and then his next step was he ended up in a foreign country for a job, and then that job fell through, and he's typing his resume on a typewriter and getting it out, and he ended up where he's supposed to be. So you don't know where you're going, and just go with the flow as much as you can. And the other thing is that that everybody wants to help you. This is what I have found amazing. I think a judge on a panel said it best. She said, we don't eat our young. And so find a mentor and ask the questions. We all have been here, we're still here, and realize that you're new and you need help, and reach out to your bar sections, get on a listserv, that sort of thing, and find out and just know that it's okay to not know where you're going. And also think of jobs that are tangentially related. Not everybody needs to litigate. Litigation kind of takes forever, but I didn't realize there's jobs in development, fundraising, there's jobs as lobbyists, there's all kinds of directions. So talk to people who are just doing interesting work and don't necessarily focus on, it has to be in a federal court, it has to be Supreme Court. There's so many different paths. And yeah, just stay interested and find your own story, and hopefully it will be as blessed as mine.
So not everyone's as lucky as Jenny to get a job in animal law right out of law school. So what I'm going to talk to you about is working for a law firm first. I'm sure a lot of you are bombarded with the process on your campuses of going through the interviewing process with law firms, and I do encourage you to do that. As Jenny said, And as I'm sure you've learned over the weekend, there are so many different careers in animal law. None of us do the same thing, and there's lots of paths to get to each of those positions. So I think for me, my message is you're not going to make a wrong decision. If you're passionate about animal law, you're going to help animals no matter what you're doing. So I am an attorney at Orrick, Herrington Sutcliffe. We have offices all over the world. We're a big law firm. I do securities litigation and white-collar defense, so nothing related to animal law. And I was in that position in San Francisco for 6 years. I imagined being there 3 years, and I actually really loved it. The people are wonderful, and they have a great pro bono program. And so what I encourage you to do is when you're looking at law firms, look at a place where you know the people you're going to be working with on a daily basis you can respect and you're going to learn from. There are a lot of law firms out there which I don't think I would have had as good of an experience. And then also look at the actual pro bono programs at the law firms. So Orrick has a really incredible pro bono program. Every hour that I spend on pro bono is billable. And so what that means is normally lawyers have around 1950 hours per year that you have to bill. So we bill in 6-minute increments. So every 6 minutes I have to keep track of. And so every single 6 minutes I spend on pro bono cases, I get credit for. So what you should look for is in some law firms, you're limited to 25 hours or 50 hours. And I think that shows a law firm's commitment to pro bono because there's very few cases that take 25 hours, especially in animal law. I mean, these are complex, cases. So, I mean, if you can, look for law firms that really do support pro bono. So currently, so you understand where I am, and then I'll get back to my path. I live in North Carolina. I actually love it. I know it's weird coming from San Francisco, but I can't imagine a greater place. And I moved there for my husband's job, and it's a lot cheaper. So I left my law firm job, and now I do contract work, which means Orrick comes to me with projects, and I can accept them or not. And that gave me the opportunity to work for the Animal Legal Defense Fund and the Humane Society of the United States. So I usually take one case from each every year. So this past year, I actually worked with Jenni on our false advertising anti-competition suit against a foie gras producer who somehow thought it was okay to call their practice humane. But we won, so. Yeah, it's awesome. And so I feel incredibly lucky to be in the position I am now, and I really do feel like my experience at Orrick led me here. The experience I gained at Orrick was just incredible. Now I did do a lot of pro bono work, more than they wanted me to do. But I also gained a lot of experience in other areas of animal law. And as you've seen this weekend, I mean, we really don't bring cases under animal law. I mean, we're bringing anti-competition suits. We're bringing, antitrust suits. It's, not things that you'd normally associate with animal law. And I'm sure you've taken an animal law class or looked at it. Animal law covers almost every class in law school. You've got property and contracts and constitutional law and environmental law. Everything you can think of. And so working at a law firm will get you experience that will help you in animal law. I was thinking yesterday with Hampton Creek Foods, which almost made me want to cry. I just think that's going to change the entire dynamics of, I do farm animal litigation. I think that's going to change the entire dynamics of the industry. But they need corporate lawyers. They need securities lawyers. They probably need intellectual property lawyers. And so no matter what you do, you will be able to help in some way. And again, with law school, I was not as committed as all of you. And even Jenni, I didn't attend conferences. I didn't do moot court. I do remember having coffee with Pam a couple of times in Starbucks in Chicago. But I did get involved with clinics. I did take on animal law cases. I was lucky enough to do that in Northwestern's Complex Civil Litigation Clinic. I wrote my senior research paper on how to establish an animal law clinic. So there's so many ways that you can get involved and show your commitment. So I have two pieces of advice, which Jenni covered already. One, show your commitment to animal law. No matter where you are, there's something you can do. I mean, you can foster. Like I've done lots of dog and cat fosters. You can, volunteer at, local organizations. You can be involved in solves. You can do these moot court competitions. You can. I actually work with a lot of students. I'm in Chapel Hill. I work with students at UNC Chapel Hill on cases. They've helped with us with cases on the foie gras case. Actually, I see Stephanie in the background who helped us with from UC Irvine, helping us with doing a lot of pro bono work on the same foie gras case. We used her research throughout the entire case. I mean, I was using the things that she wrote in the complaint through, all of our oral arguments. And she's second year, third year now. She was the second year last year. And I mean, her research made a huge impact in litigation. So you can do that even if there's not an official program through your school. But showing that commitment in whatever way you can is really important. And my second piece of advice is do the best you can wherever you are. So as I'm sure you've heard too, we are facing an uphill battle in a lot of our cases. I think the terrain's flattening out a bit, but it is an uphill battle. And what we need on our side are excellent attorneys. We need the passion, but we also need people with the skills and the experience. So we also need to be creative. We need to think of alternative causes of action, ways to approach this, because we don't actually always have the law in the books in our favor. So do what you can to be the best attorney you can be in whatever you're doing. And that might be different paths. I mean, I want to talk about something that Russ Mead, he's an attorney at the Animal Law Coalition, he's actually on the ethics panel this morning, has been saying to a number of people this weekend, is 60% of attorneys nowadays are solo practitioners. I mean, that's a lot. So if you can't go directly into animal law, if you can't go the law firm route, there's a lot you can do otherwise. I mean, he's talking about just the economics of it. If you come out and you're making $250 an hour, which I think is reasonable for a solo practitioner, and I mean, you don't have to work that much to make a great salary, and then you can spend that free time. So you do, whatever you're interested in. Maybe you're interested in employment law. So you run your practice in employment law, and then in your free time, you do animal law cases or you lobby. He has some incredible stories about what he's done in Seattle in his free time, just on his own, getting things passed and changed. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the litigation route. But for me, that's my message. Show your commitment and just be the best attorneys you can be wherever you are.
Well, Jenni and Nicole covered a lot, but I have to get a confession out of the way first. I am so jealous of all the law students here. I mean, when I graduated from Northwestern Law School in 1987, I will date myself, no gasps. The animal law was unheard of as an academic field. And, today you have so much to help shape your careers and visions. And I think you're very fortunate. I realize there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's necessary to sit with that. Before I share my personal path, I do have one main message to share, and that is just volunteer. Do what you love and make yourself visible, make yourself recognized. And I honestly feel that opportunities will present themselves, and you can create opportunities for yourself. In my case, it was really, I have a pretty untraditional path. I'm not practicing law full-time. My legal trainings come, very handy so many times in my job, certainly on the advocacy end and just a number of areas. But it's really resulted, it seems almost coincidental at first, but it's really a series of one volunteer experience leading to another that resulted in my current position as executive director of Hart. It's a mouthful. We just do business as Hart. We're basically a nonprofit public charity that's a full-service provider of humane education based in New York City with chapters in Portland, Oregon, Chicago, and Indianapolis. And our mission is essentially to foster compassion and respect for all living beings in the environment by educating youth and teachers in humane education. A little known fact is that there are a lot of humane education laws out there, and our goal is to help schools comply with these laws by teaching students ourselves and training school teachers and engaging in city and state level advocacy efforts to improve enforcement of humane ed mandates. I really feel so fortunate today to actually be paid for something I'm passionate about and would just volunteer to do. I went to Cornell for college thinking I wanted to become a veterinarian. I mean, how many of us who loved animals may have said that as children? But when I volunteered at an animal shelter in a large animal hospital, I experienced firsthand how the companion animals most in need were the homeless ones. And I felt like I wanted to do something more policy related and went to law school. But honestly, it was a nebulous idea for me back then, what I would do with a degree and how I would do it. The one opportunity I had in law school that I seized to focus on animal law was writing a journal article on the United States enforcement of CITES, or the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. And I realize there's so many avenues you all have today to pursue animal law in law school, but for me, this was the most memorable experience, and my research exposed me to so much, and I highly recommend it. I was faced with staggering loans out of law school, and I chose to go the law firm route. I worked at a large law firm in Manhattan, Shea & Gould, at that time at least, in 1990, and it was good for me. I got to pay off my debt, and I got some solid legal experience, but I always had it in my mind I just wanted the freedom later on to do what I wanted. I ended up working part-time on weekends, just tutoring students for standardized tests. I know this sounds I have a pretty untraditional path, I gotta say. But I found that I could teach for 10 hours straight, thoroughly enjoy myself, earn higher wages, and I'm like, well, what am I doing in the current position I'm in? And I ended up joining the senior faculty of advantage testing, and I did that happily for 9 years. It gave me a lot of control over my schedule that I did not have as a junior associate at a large law firm in Manhattan, and I joined the attorney referral network of Animal Legal Defense Fund at that time. And I love Joyce Tischler. She has been my source. ALDF has been my sole source for so many years of animal law information opportunities. And the one thing I think it's really lacking is a matchmaking site, because if it had one, I could have met Robert Friedlander, my husband, much sooner. What really turned my life upside down, though, was about 12 years ago, I attended a conference at the New York City Bar Association on the legal status of non-human animals. And I could not believe there were so many incredibly intelligent, talented attorneys working on a pro bono basis to help animals in such an effective and meaningful way. And I just got so excited about this that I wanted to just join and make animal law a big part of my life. So what I ended up doing was, within months, I left a job I was very happy in and enrolled in the Masters in Animals and Public Policy at Tufts University Veterinary School. And that's when Steve Wise and Paul Waldo, who's quietly sitting in the back over there, were on the faculty. I remember my father saying to me, well, what are you going to do with a degree? And I said, I don't know, but I have to do this. And I kept my eyes peeled in grad school for animal jobs, and I'll share with you, I did not find anything interesting or suitable. And I had a period of disappointment, especially after investing that time and money in grad school. But I got the most incredible volunteer job upon graduation. And I was asked to chair the New York City Bar Association's Animal Law Committee. And for me, that was the ideal outlet, because I was able to just do so much through that channel. The committee did so many things. We organized CLE courses and free public programs, published reports, acted as a referral service for animal cases. We commented on pending bills and drafted proposed legislation. And we also did a lot of community outreach, which was really meaningful to me because we made available to the public brochures on topics like animal cruelty cases and keeping pets in New York City housing. In fact, our brochure on providing for pets in the event of your death or disability was the second most popular brochure at the entire Bar Association. In case you're curious, the most popular one was how to sue your lawyer. Lawyers suing lawyers. But we ended up, I was amazed by how much the committee could accomplish just by having the name of the New York City Bar behind every report we submitted, and we took advantage of that. The governor contacted us wanting to know our opinion on the exotic pet bill, banning exotic pets. And legislators told us that the report we submitted persuaded them on passing legislation to allow animals on court orders of protection. I mean, there were so many things that we were able to do. I serve now on the board of the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals, and that too was an outgrowth of this committee. When Bloomberg was elected in 2002, that was around the time that we sent at the time the committee was chaired by Marianne Sullivan, and sent a report to the mayor's transition team on opportunities to improve animal-related policies in the city, and they really got behind the section on animal care and control. And the Mayor's Alliance essentially it's an umbrella organization that serves as a liaison between over 150 animal rescue groups and shelters and the city of New York. It's committed to seeing the day when no New York City dog or cat is euthanized simply because he or she doesn't have a home. Over the years, under the leadership of Jane Hoffman, it's been awarded over $26 million from Maddie's Fund and is on track to accomplish this goal. While I was at the New York City Bar during my tenure, I met Brad Goldberg from Animal Welfare Trust, which is a private operating foundation. And he got interested in piloting a humane education program. And that's when I began consulting with his foundation. And we needed a nonprofit to function as a vehicle to implement this project. And that's when Hart, which was dormant at the time, got reorganized and restructured, and I became its ED. And that was 8 years ago now. It's grown a lot, and my dad is happy now. One other thing, I don't want to get into too much detail on it because it is in the literature that's been provided to you, but in 2008, I chaired the American Bar Association's Animal Law Committee, and that was also from a volunteer experience, really. I wanted to develop a human education public service project with the ABA. I have to say that I think, you can probably tell from what I've talked about, Bar Association Animal Law Committees are an incredible opportunity for students, for law students. I mean, the leadership is hungry for student involvement, and I think that you can do so many things if you're motivated. I've asked students to co-chair the Public Service Subcommittee with me at the ABA, and I just think there are a lot of opportunities. And reasonable fees. I mean, as an attorney, you have to pay like $500, but as a law student, it's $25 to join the ABA. In closing, I see some concerned faces. I don't mean to say that, get this expensive law degree and only volunteer and don't pursue a paying position. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think you're lucky to have a passion. I mean, a lot of people don't have that conviction. So, allow that to be your internal compass because you need to trust your heart. And there's no pun intended here. I think, a colleague of mine at the ABA said once, Jill Mariani, we dare to dream not as an escape or illusion, but as empowerment. Fortunately for the animals, I believe you are a group that dares to dream, so thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can we do the thing where we get the morning back? I've always wanted that. I've never taught something that say, good morning? Good morning. Yes, all right.
Good morning, Mr.
Thanks.
Linney.
I can check that off my box now. I feel important. I'm Tom Linney. I'm ALDF's pro bono coordinator. Starting from the beginning when I was in law school, I was attracted to the idea of doing environmental law or maybe doing legislative work or doing human rights work. And then I went to a conference called Equal Justice Works in DC, and I was walking around meeting with possible employers, and then I bumped into Pam Hart and Steve Wells from the Animal Legal Defense Fund, and they started talking to me about animal law, and I started learning about, wait, this can't be right with laws and animals, and they said, well, you should go back to Texas, and where I was going to law school at the University of Texas at Austin, and try and get an animal law course taught, and form a student animal legal defense fund chapter. And so I started bugging Nicole probably every week for help and guidance, and we started the SALDF chapter, and it was just like everything clicked all at once. Like it was like this was the dream job, and but it was like every other law school. There wasn't a lot of support. I think some of you had some good comments yesterday during the student panel about participation, and there was meetings where I would be the only person that showed up, and so I was like, well, I'll take minutes, and I'll. But it was, for me, I just had to tell myself, look, I'm going to be the movement at this school. I'm going to do what I can. If I put it out there, that's all that matters. If people attend, great. If they don't. But we had some fun events. I know not everyone's here is still in law school, but I think the ideas yesterday talking about working with other organizations is really important. We had an event like the University of Texas, and some schools will do a giant open house one day a year. So it's called Explore UT Day, and there's a couple thousand kids that come onto campus, and so we set up, with support of ALDF, we set up this Animal Law 101 presentation. And so here I am talking about animal law as if I really knew it, but we had a bunch of kids show up, and they're sitting in the audience with their parents and learning about the different issues. And then we had, at the time in Texas, there was a part of the animal cruelty law that there was an exception where if you had tortured an animal but it wasn't owned by anyone, like if it was just a feral cat, there was ways to get out of the prosecution. And so I was collecting signatures for that at the event, and then we had a rescue come on and a bunch of Great Danes walking around. And so of course between that and the kids, the animals, that really made it a great event. And then I had to talk about there's a lot of faith-based organizations at the law school and the entire university. So we had to talk on spirituality and animals, and we had to talk about CAFOs, and got the Environmental Law Society involved. And one year I even dressed up as Santa so that people could bring their pets to school and get a picture. So that was, and that was during finals. That was something. So for a very shy person to play Santa for the sake of animals, I was proud of that one. But, I think the trouble too is that I think we're so worried about timing in law school and how hard it is to do everything. And there's just so much that's thrown at you. And, I think to me, I just said, look, I'm going to do one thing a month. I'm going to do one great event. I'm going to have one speaker. I'm going to have one fundraiser or one, petition collecting drive. And then, when you look back, all of a sudden, every month for your couple years in law school, you can do a lot. You can do a lot of great things in such a short time. I think one of the best things that I think most people do here in this audience is play well with others. We're not doing any good by not being friends with people who don't share our views. And so, you have to go to other meetings, join, go across the aisle and try and invite people to your work and go and be a part of what they do and listen to what they want to do, because we're going to do so much more good, because we all know, what the right cause is, I guess. And so it's just a matter of getting other people on board. And then course advocacy, we didn't have an animal law course, and so I used ALDF's petition, and we set up a table and got a bunch of students interested and said, will you take this class? But if you won't, will you at least support it? And we got it offered within 4 months, I think, of our efforts. And then, then I was like, okay, well, there's only one animal law course in most of your classes. And so I think I was late in learning this, but I was like, how can I apply all of my classes to animal law? And I think I would have paid a lot more attention during like Civ Pro and a lot of classes that I didn't really care about if I had just kept in my mind, the passion for the animals and like, how can I use this to make a difference. And so that helped. And then, like we had a legislative affairs, or not a legislative affairs, but a legislative drafting and experience sort of class, and we had to draft a model law. And so I did pets and protective orders. And sure enough, around that time, I got an internship with the Texas Humane Legislation Network. There's a a law firm called Barron & Budd, and they do these fellowships and they do public interest support, and they never given one for animal law. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. And then they gave me the money, and so I worked for Texas Humane Legislation Network, and at the same time I'm drafting this bill for class as they're gonna try and go to the legislature with it. So a lot of the things, came together and clicked for me. And then, I think also for those of you who still, if you have a seminar, try and use your writing requirement and apply it for animals, and that's really gonna help, something that you can have on the books for your resume when you graduate. Part of that internship, was great at Texas Humane Legislation Network. I learned a lot about different laws. I got to network with all the attorneys at THLN. I got to hold the umbrella for Nancy Perry and Kinky Friedman at a press conference in front of the Capitol. That was my highlight, I think. But I got a lot of things that just by doing one little thing, everything snowballed. Like everything comes together. And it's just a matter of taking those steps and doing those things which are so hard when you're pressed for time. I think it's also about trying to use the pro bono funding. Like at many law schools, you have this opportunity there's a public interest group that'll raise money so that you all can go and work for a nonprofit. And I missed the deadlines. I wish that was a regret of mine. I had an opportunity to work for HSUS during the summer, and I didn't apply for the funding in time because I couldn't afford to go live in DC for 3 months without a job, and so I regretted that. But I was able to work for an animal law practitioner in Florida one summer and help take care of her rescue greyhound. And in addition to researching these pet store cases and helping her out, so that was a lot of fun. And then getting involved with the state bar. I mean, some of the things that have been said have been, I think, are really spot on. Like I got involved with the Austin Animal Welfare Committee and met those attorneys, and that really helped too. And then I think there's a question of there's just so many different issues, and so I think it's an easy question. Just find one thing that you're passionate about and try and become an expert in that, and be aware of the other things. But I think that's going to really it's going to benefit you in the future. When we're organizing conferences, if there's a CLE about ag or animal cruelty laws or whatever, try and focus on at least one thing and something that you really love, and then build on from that. After law school, I think it's a lot of just staying involved. I went for the University of San Diego after law school and worked for them, and they didn't have a SALDF chapter that was working and up and running, and so I mentored them. We got the campus to go cage-free. I was volunteering with, helping or going to events for Animal Protection and Rescue League in San Diego, and going to happy hours, and ALDF came through for a happy hour, and I went and got to meet with some of the staff again. And I think there's a lot of local things you can do. Now I'm on a radio show, and I'm terrible at it, but I'm on the radio, and then it's just randomly, like my chiropractor the other day is like, hey, I heard you on the radio, and then and he doesn't care. I mean, you don't think he would care about these issues, and all of a sudden he was excited about what we were talking about, and so there's just so many different things that you can do. And part of I think I plugged enough of maybe our pro bono network, but I guess I can't hurt to do some more. But some of our attorneys are here that have done some work for us, and you can do amazing things. There's Tony the Tiger, we have Lolita Research, there's pet store cases, our shelter cases in Kentucky, Ben the Bear. These are all pro bono attorneys. So if you all go out and want to make a good living, I don't blame you with the student loans and that sort of thing. But there are still some opportunities. So I hope you'll stay in contact with me and us. What else? I think some of the comments about just being flexible and creative are really important. You don't know how it's going to go, but definitely just keep doing something, and I think eventually you'll find the right job for you. I think one of the problems, or not a problem, but I think also just being true to yourself and looking at your family. Are you going to want to move to DC and work for a particular organization? Do you have a lot of loans? Do you have aging parents? Think about these things when you're trying to pick your profession, and whether that's something that you're willing to balance when you're working in animal law. I think probably the best advice is really just to listen to Pam and Nicole and Kelly, and just do anything and everything that you can. It's hard, but when when you're doing what you enjoy, you love it, and I think it's fun. Trying to have fun and make the most of it. That's it.
We have a very humble panel here. you don't know is, you know, we remembered Tom when he was in law school. We remembered Nicole. We remember Jenny. Unfortunately, I didn't know Meena at the time, but we watch everybody, and they make an impression. Can you hear me? So, you know, when there was a job available in my department, I remembered Tom Linney from that conference. It was, I don't know, Tom, 4 or 5 years after I had met you. And whether he knew it or not, I was watching him, and I was watching his career because he had impressed me so much. He was, you know, on the top of the list when we had a position. So I reached out to him, and I'm sure it was a surprise email, you know, why is she reaching out to me? But I think the message is, be professional, like they said, play well with others, volunteer, keep yourself out there, and, you know, have faith that something will happen if you stick with it. I mean, it's such a great message that these doors will open, and it's, you know, Tom's a co-host on a radio show. You know, when he was at the Equal Justice Conference, could he ever imagine that? You know, Meena, her reputation preceded her, and I'd always heard so much about her, and then she involved our CELDF chapters with these trainings with Hart, and it's just a great opportunity. So I just want to emphasize, be open. You know, everything they said is wonderful. Jenny, we didn't hire her, she hired us. You know, she showed up with funding. She said, I'm coming to California. I want to work with you. So be a hustler, be committed, you know, just, you know, do whatever you can to get the job, because it's not going to come to you. It's almost you have to create your own opportunities and come to it. So with that, I'd like to open up the Q&A. We have just a wealth of information right here. So if anyone wants to come up to the mic.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm a medical malpractice litigation attorney in Los Angeles. I'm really interested in doing pro bono for ALDF. So I'd just like to hear a little bit more, please, about like the practical things, how that would work, because I did notice on filling out the form that it says that ALDF cannot indemnify you if you were to be sued as a lawyer. And my husband supports and puts up with all my animal rights activities, but he doesn't want me to blow my entire nest egg, and I have, you know, malpractice insurance for medical malpractice cases. So just how does that work? Do you have, like, I'm particularly interested in anti-circus activities and things like that, and I know they're quite, like, Ringling is very vindictive in terms of suing everyone. So I know it's kind of a weird aspect of my question, but I'm just wondering more how practically it would work for someone like me to get involved.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, so what we would do is we have a database that tracks all our attorneys. And then, so when you join, we get you added to that database. There's opportunity for you to write about your interest areas in the application, and so I can keep that in mind when we have a case. We have 2 tracks. We try to be a resource, which one of these things I really love about ALDF is that we try to be a resource for the public when they reach out to us about particular cases. Either it's outside of our mission or it's in a state where we can't do the work. But we're able now, with these 1,500 attorneys, we can turn around and outsource the work and find someone, you know, some support for whatever the matter is. So I'll turn around and forward those requests, for instance, to all of our California attorney members, or I may focus it to just, you know, someone who has med mal or employment or whatever the particular issues are. In terms of the, you know, insurance question, I mean, most attorneys, it's not really a concern for them. They'll just sign up for some policy on their own or do something small. But I mean, it's a lot of times it may just be doing research and writing, you know, behind the scenes. It's really.
That's what I was wondering, is if you had that kind of.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what it is.
Do you often need people to go into court to argue, though, and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. We definitely need litigators, so.
Okay,
yeah.
I love to argue, so let's go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. My name is Lynn Brennan. I practice in San Diego, and this has been an exceptional conference, so thank you so much to everybody who's been putting this on. Meena, you said it in passing, but I had a kind of light bulb idea. When you said matchmaking, recently divorced on Match.com, I'm thinking corporate sponsors like Match.com could have like a subset for animal lovers, and, you know, somehow incorporate fundraising that way. Who should I talk to at ALDF with running with that idea? I'm serious.
I hope I don't get in trouble for this.
No, really, I'll talk to you. Yeah, because as a business owner, I know it's about connections, and you never know. So, I mean, I would love to have, I would go to the animal lover subset on Match.com.
Harmony, you know?
Someone told me this weekend there is something like Veggie Date.
What's that? Say that again?
Veggie Date?
There is veggie date.
Veggie Date.
Veggie dates. Maybe, but I don't know. But I just think Match.com is so huge, and that, you know, just plugging into that, I think there's some potential there. So I'll talk to you. That's right. That's right. And thanks to Meena.
Positions can be created.
I thought that's what this conference was for, actually. No. I haven't met another MAP graduate since I graduated, so sorry for my outburst.
Oh.
I was wondering if any of the panelists had thoughts about how to get into teaching animal law at a law school or becoming an animal law academic. Thanks.
Do you want to talk about, how we can support that from an adjunct perspective?
Yeah, if you just identify, if you have a particular school in mind, email us and we'll figure out if it's been taught before, and if it hasn't, we'll send you a packet of materials. It includes the casebook, their sample syllabi, paper topics. We have an animal law instructor listserv, so if you end up offering the course, you can communicate with other professors around the country and bend their ear about, hey, how did you approach this new case? We have an animal law instructor website where we have all these resources available for the professors that are teaching it. But, I think as Pam maybe mentioned yesterday about seed grants, if a law school hasn't offered the course before, we have these grants to help them, especially in these times. And administration may find any excuse to try and turn the course down. So we try and make it as easy as possible for anyone who wants to teach the course. So just reach out to us. And also, I just encourage people to teach. See if maybe we have people who teach at community colleges about animal cruelty, or there's some different opportunities to do new and innovative things. But yeah, reach out to us and we'll help.
And I'm so swift with this cast, I should stand here. One thing I'd also encourage you to do, there's about 150 animal law courses being offered right now, and there's approximately 200 ABA accredited law schools. So my colleague Nicole Platta, she's developing an undergraduate course. So I would be open to things like that and going into other disciplines. When I had graduated from law school, I had been out 1 year. And I started teaching animal law at the University of Wisconsin Law School. And the reason why I was able to do that is I found a mentor on the faculty who I worked with, and he helped me develop the course, and we went to him for his guidance. So I would plug into other faculty members there at your university and persuade them to help you get a class at the law school you're interested in.
Hi, thanks. I have kind of a complicated question. I'll try to make it easy. I spent my life working with animals the past 35 years. I was a zookeeper for 20 years, marine mammal trainer for 14, humane officer for 10. Really proud of some of the things I did, not so proud of others. Went to law school, finished, and I'm waiting to take the bar and pass it. I've already taken it once. California's not easy. Part of what I see, and I see a lot of young people with a lot of enthusiasm, which is really exciting and I think really important for the field, but I also think it's important to have animal background and knowledge. The more you know about animals, the more credible you are. So I'm hoping when I combine the two, I'm going to be able to do something with it. I think I have a lot to offer and a lot of valuable things. But at this point, I'm 52 years old. It's a little tough to compete with people who are 20 in any kind of job. I was recently fired a year and a half ago for being a whistleblower at my past job, which I am proud of. But what advice do you have for older people who do have a lot to offer, maybe went to an unconventional law school, had an unconventional path to get here, but still want to work and be helpful in the field of animal law?
Well, first I want to say I'm very excited, and I definitely want to talk to you about your marine mammal training experience, because you probably are already qualified to make huge differences in some of the projects I'm working on, because we always need an expert, and it's difficult to find somebody in these fields and able to tell the court. It's one thing to have an animal lawyer come in and say we have a problem, and it's another thing to have somebody from the industry say, and this is how that problem works, and this is actual evidence and not just someone's theory. But as far as a career path, I mean, you may be the Russ Mead model. Find a niche that you can do solo practice, and then when these opportunities come up in your particular areas of expertise, get involved in those cases and I do think that we're going to have a bunch of, hopefully a bunch of marine mammal opportunities, because I hope that we keep the heat on SeaWorld, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. Their OSHA appeals before the DC Circuit right now. The oral arguments are on November 12th, and depending on which way it goes, I think there will be more opportunities afterwards, because they're either going to behave or not. And so, yeah.
52 is the new 30.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm from UC Irvine Law. My question, I guess, is I know that there is a lot of stigma still in terms of animal welfare and animal rights. And I was wondering if you guys had any anecdotes of experiences you've had when you're interviewing for jobs that aren't about animal law, and how you address those things with potential employers. I don't know, I'm a 1L, I've never interviewed for a law job, but I imagine that could be something that would be problematic, and you want to be true to, your beliefs and what you work really hard for, but at the same time you need to get that job so you can make a difference. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I'll take this one. So I actually remember my interview with Orrick. I had on my resume that I was interested in vegan wine. And I'm interviewing San Francisco, everyone loves wine. And most of the interview was talking about vegan wine. So I think, number one, that just makes a connection with people. So whatever you can do to talk to people, show you're articulate, show you have an interest in things, makes a difference. I mean, this was the head of Securities Litigation Department at Orrick. He did not care about animals at all. But I think a way to go is animal law is complicated. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. And that's what, I mean, from the law firm perspective, that's what people want. They want people who can, take a project and run with it and be responsible, and you don't have to monitor them constantly. And I feel like animal lawyers, in some ways, are more capable of doing that. You're able to go against the grain. And so I think talking about animal law articulately, like that, can really help. I mean, and people will understand, they'll look and they'll be interested. And I think once I've been vegan a really long time, and at law firms, you're going out to lunch and dinners with clients. One of my big clients, Orrick, and so it's an opportunity to talk with people and educate people. Whenever you order a vegan dish, people are asking you questions. And so I think just being articulate is a really good way to show people that you're capable of other things.
I'll add there's a fine line between articulate and overly enthusiastic, because I thought I had some really great interviews talking about all of my rescue work with seals, and didn't work out. But everything that makes me wrong for firms makes me right for public interest.
Step one, become articulate.
Yeah. And read your audience too, I was going to say.
I probably failed there.
Yeah. So it's hard. Maybe I don't love talking about cruelty to farm animals, so maybe that's an advantage to me. But I think, read your audience. But if you can really talk about the complexity of animal law and gear that into whatever you're applying for, right, I think it will help you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for speaking with us. We really appreciate it. I'm Angelique. I'm a 3L at Pace Law School. And I wanted to see if there was a way for us as law students who are graduating soon to access these lists of either firms or pro bono attorneys that we can specifically go to interview with in our area. So I'm guessing, Tom, I know you have all the lists, so I don't know if it's we email you. Because, things move very fast-paced at the conferences, and sometimes you don't always get to talk with everyone, and there's people that we don't even know who are out there. So is emailing you, is that like a possibility?
Yeah, or just give me a call. We try to be mindful of firms and respecting their privacy and making sure that, a lot of them may want to do work for us, but they don't want the public to know that they're doing work for us. So, but if you reach out to me, and we also have a lot of our award winners, like last night, and they've agreed to be, talked about in public. So we've had winners of our Pro Bono Achievement Awards the last few years, and you can look and see who's there. I mean, I think there's two schools of thought is, trying to go to these places where you already have a foot in the door, and the other mindset is going to a firm where they've never done this before, and you're going to be the one that changes the whole firm culture.
And I just want to add, too, you said you're at Pace Law School?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the New York City Bar has a really vibrant group of attorneys on their animal law committee. So a number of them are working at law firms, and, they're doing pro bono work in animal law, and there are a lot of connections to be made, a lot of networking opportunities at these bar association committees.
Okay, I'll go to the next one.
And my email's on the website, so if anyone wants to email me with other questions, I'm happy to talk to people too.
Great, thank you so much.
And I made this pitch at my panel too, but on our app for the conference, there's a place to populate your attendee information. And I noticed that my pitch didn't work and nobody did it. But it's a way to help people find you. So I'll make one final pitch. It's our first year using that app. But
I did it.
Good. And my email address is pamdhart, H-A-R-T, @ALDF.org. You can contact me and I can funnel out your emails to the appropriate people. So I wanted to thank Jenny, Nicole, Meena, Tom. You've been wonderful panelists. I feel like I've learned a lot. And thank you all for getting up this early and participating and everything you're doing. And we look forward to watching you and keeping our eyes on you. And best of luck with the rest of law school and your early careers. Thank you.